Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking something most of us use without a second thought, sunglasses, and really digging into their surprisingly long and complex story.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We're going way beyond just, fashion. We've got a pile of sources here that treat sunglasses like everything from ancient courtroom props to, believe it or not, critical space gear.
Seriously, space gear.
Absolutely. So our mission today is kind of trace that whole journey, the function, the fashion, and the actual science of protecting your eyes, which is pretty crucial.
Right, and people call them all sorts of things, don't they? Shades, sunnies. I saw one source mention sun cheaters.
Huh, yeah, that was an early 20th century American slang term.
Yeah.
Cute, right. But whatever you call them, the core idea, the reason we're talking about them is protection.
Okay, so let's start there. Why is protection so fundamental?
Well, it's basically a medical necessity. The American Optometric Association, for instance, is really clear on this. They recommend wearing UV-blocking sunglasses pretty much anytime you're in the sun.
And it's not just about avoiding squinting, is it?
Oh, not at all. We're talking serious long-term damage potential from UV, and also this high-energy visible light, or HEV light, blue light, basically.
Okay, break down those risks for us, because I think most people just think sun's bright.
It's much worse than that, unfortunately. You're looking at things like cataracts, that's the clouding of your eye's lens. Then there's pterygium.
Pterygium.
Yeah, it sounds weird. It's a growth, like a fleshy tissue that grows over the white part of your eye onto the cornea. It's benign mostly, but can affect vision, and frankly, it doesn't look great.
Yikes.
And then there's photokeratitis. Think of it like sunburn, but on your cornea. Extremely painful, causes temporary vision loss. It's what people often call snow blindness.
Ah, right. I've heard of that.
So yeah, sunglasses fundamentally are protective gear against all that stuff.
Okay, that sets the stage. So let's get into the history, because like you said, they're not a modern thing. We need to push that assumption aside right away. Where do we start?
We need to go way, way back. Centuries. And maybe surprisingly, we start up in the Arctic.
The Arctic. Not exactly the first place I think of for sunglasses.
Well, think about the environment. Snow and ice everywhere, reflecting sunlight like crazy. The earliest really effective precursors we know about are Inuit snow goggles. Some finds date back to maybe the 13th century, possibly even earlier.
And these were around long before European spectacles.
Oh yeah, hundreds of years before. And the construction is ingenious. They weren't using glass or anything like that.
What were they made of then?
Things like flattened walrus ivory or caribou antler, sometimes wood or bone. And the key design feature was these really narrow, horizontal slits cut into the material.
Slits, not lenses.
Exactly. The sources are clear on this. The function wasn't about filtering the light's intensity through some special material. They didn't have that technology. It was about drastically cutting down the amount of light that could even reach the eye.
So it's like a physical barrier, just letting a tiny bit of light through.
Precisely. A very clever geometrical solution. It massively reduced the glare coming off the snow and ice, which was the main cause of snow blindness.
Wow. So functional survival gear, basically. Developed by indigenous peoples in North America, Northern Asia, wherever that intense glare was a problem.
Right. It shows the absolute earliest motivation. Protect your eyes or face debilitating consequences. Pure function.
Okay, now let's shift gears completely. Ancient Rome. There's that famous story about Emperor Nero.
Ah, yes, Nero and his emerald. Pliny the Elder wrote about him watching gladiator fights through a cut emerald. It's a great anecdote, but we need to be careful about what that emerald was actually doing.
It was not like a modern lens then.
Probably not. It likely functioned more like a polished mirror, maybe reflecting some light away or perhaps offering a bit of contrast. It certainly wasn't filtering UV or correcting vision. It might have just been, a status symbol, showing off his wealth.
Okay, so maybe not true sunglasses. But then we jump to 12th century China, and things get really interesting. A totally different function emerges. Concealment.
Yes, this is one of my favorite bits of the history. In Chinese courts back then, judges used these flat panes made of smoky quartz. They called them aitai.
Aitai.
Yeah, apparently it translates roughly to dark clouds, which is quite poetic, isn't it? And these quartz slabs, they weren't corrective. They didn't have any prescription.
So why wear them? if not for the sun or vision?
It was purely psychological. The historical records suggest judges wore them specifically to hide their facial expressions, their eye movements, while they were questioning witnesses.
Well, yeah.
The idea was to project total impartiality, so their surprise or disbelief or whatever wouldn't give anything away. They might have offered a tiny bit of glare reduction indoors, but the main point was projecting authority and objectivity.
That's incredible. So the first sort of widespread use of dark lenses we know about wasn't for the sun at all. It was for hiding your thoughts. A judicial tool?
Pretty much a tool of behavioral control in a way.
Wild. Okay, so let's follow this idea into Europe. What's happening there between, say, the 15th and 18th centuries? Is tinted glass becoming a thing?
It's slow and very situational at first. We see little hints. Like there's a record from 1459 of someone named Nuno Fernandes asking for protective spectacles for riding horses in the snow. Again, that snow glare problem.
Right, specific needs.
Exactly. And later, you see tinted glass used for specific events, like viewing solar eclipses. King Louis XIV's court apparently used a smoky glass filter on a telescope to watch the 1706 eclipse.
But what about more everyday use?
For that, we probably look to Venice, the famous gondola glasses.
Ah, I've heard of those. Vetri da gondola.
That's them, made from Murano glass, often tinted, sometimes even with a mirrored finish. And they were used a lot, especially by women and children, out on the canals.
Makes sense. Bright sun, reflections off the water.
Exactly. The glare would be intense. So these were really functional, designed specifically for that environment. But of course, being Venice, they quickly became a fashion statement too, a sign of wealth. There were also these Goldoni glasses, apparently, worn by the elite, which had cloth sides for even more protection.
Okay, now you mentioned a guy named James Askoff in 1752. He was experimenting with tinted lenses, but he kind of missed the whole sun protection point.
Yeah, Askoff's focus was totally different. He was experimenting with blue and green tinted lenses because he thought incorrectly. We now know that these specific colors could actually correct vision problems, like permanently fix impairments.
So he was trying to change how the eye saw light, not block harmful stuff.
Exactly. He wasn't thinking about sun protection at all. I mean, UV radiation hadn't even been properly identified scientifically yet, so the idea of blocking invisible rays just wasn't on the table.
It takes a bit longer for that practical work-related use to show up clearly, like with Lavoisier in 1772.
Right, Antoine Lavoisier, the famous chemist. He worked with intense heat combustion, often using lenses to focus sunlight. There are depictions of him wearing dark lenses while doing this kind of work, so he's one of the earliest examples we have of someone using dark lenses as essentially personal protective equipment for hazardous science.
And then by the 19th century, just wearing tinted specs for comfort becomes more common.
Yeah, it seems like by then, railway travelers were often wearing them, probably just to cut down on the general glare and maybe dust and soot from the train. More about comfort during travel.
Okay, and there was that sort of weird, unverified medical connection you mentioned, with certain tint colors.
Yeah, that's a strange little historical aside. There was this popular idea, though, again, we don't have hard proof of prescriptions, that yellow, amber, or brown tints helped with photophobia, extreme light sensitivity.
And that sensitivity was linked to?
Syphilis. It was a known symptom in the later stages of the disease. So the theory is people started wearing these colors hoping for relief, maybe because they heard it helped, or maybe it just became associated with the condition. So the tint itself might have become this unspoken signal of a really serious, socially taboo illness.
Wow. So we've gone from judges hiding thoughts, to scientists protecting from fire, to travelers wanting comfort, to maybe people trying to cope with a disease symptom. Quite a journey already.
Definitely. And it really sets the stage perfectly for the next big shift, the move towards modern eye protection, where science and the mass market really start to collide.
Right. Which brings us to part 2. The dawn of modern protection, fashion, and standards. So what was that key scientific breakthrough that really separates, say, ancient smoky quartz from the sunglasses we think of now?
It boils down to understanding and specifically targeting ultraviolet radiation, UV. There was a physician, Jean-Marie Theodore Fusel, working in the late 1800s. He was apparently the first to really strongly argue for using yellow-tinted glasses specifically to filter out those invisible UV rays.
So he shifted the focus from just darkness or color to blocking something unseen.
Exactly. That was the game changer. And industry followed. By 1899, a German company, Rodenstock, produced what might be the very first sunglasses commercially sold with the explicit intent of blocking UV. That's a major turning point.
But the tech that really made it reliable came a bit later, in 1913.
Yes, that was the invention of Crookes lenses. Sir William Crookes developed this glass that had cerium mixed into it. Cerium is a rare earth element, and it has this amazing property. It completely blocks UV light.
So it wasn't just hoping that tint was enough, it was built into the glass itself.
Precisely. Before Crookes lenses, you might have dark glass, and maybe it blocked some UV by chance. With these, you had a chemical guarantee. The material itself stopped the harmful rays. That was huge.
Okay, so the science is getting there, and then the market just explodes. You mentioned movie stars in the 20s.
Oh, yeah. The glamour factor kicked in big time. Early movie stars started wearing them, maybe partly because of the bright studio lights, but also offset. It created this aura of mystery and cool. But the person who really cracked the mass market was Sam Foster.
Sam Foster, 1929. What was his big idea?
He figured out how to make sunglasses cheaply, using celluloid plastic for the frames, mass production. But his real stroke of genius was where he sold them.
Right, not in an optician's office.
No way. He set up shop selling his Foster Grant sunglasses at a Woolworth's, right on the Atlantic City boardwalk.
Genius. Right where people were strolling in the sun, wanting to look cool.
Exactly. Direct access to the leisure market, the people who wanted them for fun and fashion, not just necessity. And it worked.
The numbers must have shot up.
Dramatically. Life magazine reported on it in 1938. They said something like 20 million pairs were sold in the US just in 1937, and they called sunglasses a new fad for wear on city streets.
But they also pointed out something crucial about why people were buying them, didn't they?
Yes, and this is key. Life estimated that only about a quarter, 25%, of those 20 million buyers actually needed them for vision correction or some specific medical reason.
So 3/4 were buying them just for style or comfort?
Pretty much. That cemented sunglasses as this major cultural accessory, separate from their protective function, even while the technology itself was still improving.
And the next big tech leap was polarization in 1936.
Right, that was Edwin H. Land and his Polaroid filter. Now, polarization is often confused with UV protection, but it's totally different. It's about filtering light based on the direction it's vibrating.
Okay, explain that a bit more. How does blocking vibrations help?
So when light bounces off a flat, shiny, non-metallic surface, think water, a wet road, the hood of a car that reflected light, the glare, tends to vibrate mostly horizontally. A polarizing filter has these microscopic vertical lines, essentially, that block that horizontal glare.
So it cuts out the blinding shine.
Exactly. It dramatically reduces glare, makes things look clearer, more comfortable. It's why fishermen love polarized lenses. They can actually see down into the water instead of just seeing the reflection on the surface.
Okay, this brings us to something you call the pupil paradox, which sounds important. You said it's the most vital warning.
It absolutely is. This is critical for every single person listening who owns a pair of sunglasses, especially cheap ones. Here's the paradox. Dark sunglasses that do not block UV radiation properly are actually more harmful to your eyes than wearing no sunglasses at all.
Wait, more harmful? How can that be?
It's because of how your eye naturally reacts. When you put on dark lenses, it gets darker, right? So your pupils dilate, they open wider to let more light in so you can see.
Okay, makes sense.
BUT. If those dark lenses don't have a proper UV filter, all you've done is open the floodgates. You've made your pupil wider, allowing a larger volume of that invisible, damaging UV radiation to pour directly onto your lens and retina.
Oh wow, so the darkness tricks your eye into letting more bad stuff in.
Precisely. The tint gives you comfort, makes it feel better, but without the UV block, you're actually increasing the potential for long-term damage.
So darkness alone means nothing in terms of safety.
Huh.
And you also said price isn't a guarantee either. People think expensive equals better protection.
Definitely not a guarantee. Multiple sources, studies going back to the 90s, reports from consumer groups like the ACCC in Australia, they all find basically zero correlation between price or brand name and actual UV protection levels.
So a cheap $10 pair could be better than $300 designer ones.
Absolutely. If the cheap pair has the proper UV 400 coating and the expensive one skimped on it, you just can't tell by looking or by the price tag.
Okay, so how do we know? What's the magic number or label we need to look for?
You need to look for the UV 400 reading. That label means the lenses block at least 99%, usually closer to 100%, of both UVA and UVB rays, all the way up to 400 nanometers in wavelength.
UV 400, got it. And why is that 400 nanometer number specifically important?
It's important because it covers the full spectrum of harmful UV radiation, including the highest energy part of UVA, which goes right up to 400 millimeters. Some older standards, like an old EU one, only required blocking up to 380 millimeter.
Doesn't sound like a big difference, 380 versus 400.
It might seem small, but those last 20 nanometers from 300 to 400, that's the most energetic band of UVA, so blocking it gives you that extra crucial margin of safety. UV 400 is really the gold standard you should insist on.
And again, just to hammer it home, the color of the lens tells you nothing about this UV protection.
Nothing whatsoever. You can have crystal clear lenses that block 100% of UV, and you can have pitch black lenses that block 0%. It's all about the invisible coating or material properties.
Okay. Which perfectly sets us up for part 3. Protection, specialization, and construction. Because it's not just UV we need to think about, right? You mentioned HEV or blue light earlier.
Right, high energy visible light. This is the blue-violet light at the edge of the visible spectrum right next to UV. And the concern here is its potential link to age-related macular degeneration, AMD.
AMD. That's a major cause of vision loss in older people, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
So blocking this blue light is becoming increasingly important, especially as we spend more time with screens and LED lighting, which are high in blue light emission.
And this is serious enough that organizations are actually setting standards for blue blocking.
Yeah, the example in our notes is Suva, the big Swiss accident insurer. They got involved in developing norms recommending at least 95% blockage of blue light for certain occupational safety situations. That tells you it's a recognized hazard.
So how can you tell if a lens blocks blue light? Does color matter here?
Okay, here, color does give you a clue. Because of how light filtering works complementary colors to effectively block blue light, the lens itself generally needs to be yellow, amber, or brown.
So blue or gray lenses can't really do it?
Not effectively, no. They might reduce brightness overall, but they can't specifically absorb that high-energy blue spectrum nearly as well as the yellow, amber, brown tints can. It's a common mistake people make, thinking a blue lens would block blue light.
Huh. Interesting. And you also mentioned a kind of surprising non-daytime use for these blue blocking lenses.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Those same yellow or amber tinted glasses are sometimes recommended for people with insomnia or sleep problems to be worn after dark.
Why after dark?
Because blue light, even from indoor lights or screens, tricks your brain into thinking it's still daytime and suppresses the production of melatonin, the sleep hormone. Wearing blue blockers in the evening can help shield your eyes from that artificial blue light, allowing your natural melatonin production to kick in, which can help reset your body clock.
Wow, from sun protection to sleep aid. That's versatile.
Okay, back to the physical design. You mentioned stray light. Why is the fit of the glasses so important?
Because even the best lenses in the world won't protect you fully if light can just leak in around the edges. Stray light coming in from the sides or over the top or under the bottom of the frame completely bypasses the protective lens.
So you need good coverage.
Definitely. For really effective protection, especially in high glare situations, you want larger lenses and frames that wrap around a bit or have wide temple arms to physically block that stray light from reaching your eye. Fit matters.
Let's talk materials. The classic debate. Glass versus plastic lenses. What are the pros and cons? Okay, so glass offers the absolute best optical clarity, like the crispest vision, and it's very scratch resistant. That's the upside. The downside is it's heavier, and crucially, it can shatter on impact, which is a safety risk.
And plastic.
Plastics are much lighter, which is more comfortable, and they're inherently shatter resistant, some types extremely so. That makes them way better for sports, kids, any situation where impact is possible. The main drawback is they scratch more easily than glass.
Are there different types of plastic used?
Oh yeah, several. The most common optical plastic is probably CR39. It's lightweight, good clarity, decent scratch resistance. Then you've got polycarbonate. That's even lighter and incredibly shatterproof. It's used for safety glasses, bullet-resistant windows sometimes. Great for impact resistance.
How do they even measure impact resistance for glasses? Is there a standard?
There is, yeah. In the US, it's the ANSI Z87.1 standard. It involves tests like dropping a pointed weight or firing a small steel ball at the lens at high speed. Safety-rated eyewear has to pass these tests.
Okay. And you mentioned a specific material, SR91. What's special about that?
SR91 was apparently the first lens material that wasn't polycarbonate to pass those tough ANSI impact tests, but it also managed to maintain really high optical clarity, closer to what you'd expect from glass or CR39. So it was kind of the best of both worlds, clarity and impact strength.
Gotcha. What about coatings? Mirrored lenses or mirror shades are really popular. How do they work?
That mirrored finish is a super thin metallic coating applied to the outside of the lens. Its main job is to reflect away a good chunk of the visible light before it even hits the lens material. This makes them great for super bright conditions, think skiing on a sunny day or out on the water.
Does the mirror coating also block UV?
Not necessarily, no. The UV protection still comes primarily from the underlying lens material and its UV filter. The mirror coating is mostly about reducing visible light intensity and, let's be honest, looking cool. The color of the mirror finish, by the way, is purely aesthetic. It doesn't affect the color you see through the lens.
Okay, good to know. Let's shift to specialized uses, where sunglasses are basically required equipment. Driving, for instance. There are safety rules about lens darkness.
Huge safety rules. Lenses are put into categories based on how much visible light they let through, called visible light transmission, or VLT. Category 4 lenses are the darkest. They only let in about 3% to 8% of light.
That sounds really dark.
It is. And because they reduce vision so much, especially in changing light, they are legally deemed unsuitable for driving at any time in many places, like the UK and EU. They have to be labeled not suitable for driving and road use.
So what is suitable for driving?
Generally, Category 2 lenses are recommended for daytime driving. They transmit between 18% and 43% of light. That usually gives a good balance of glare reduction without making things too dark, especially if you go into shade or a tunnel briefly. Category 3, 18% VLT, can be okay in very bright conditions, but Category 2 is often safer overall.
What about those lenses that change tint automatically, photochromic lenses? Are they good for driving?
Usually not ideal inside a car. Here's why. Photochromic lenses darken in response to UV light, but car windscreens already block most UV light to protect you.
So the lenses don't get the UV signal they need to darken properly inside the car.
Exactly. They might stay too light when it's bright outside, or they might react really slowly when you drive out of a garage into sunlight. That lag can be dangerous. So a fixed tint lens, like a Category 2, is generally more predictable and safer for driving.
Okay, moving up in altitude. Aircraft piloting. UV is a bigger deal up there, right?
Much bigger deal. The atmosphere is thinner, so there's less natural filtering of UV radiation. Pilots definitely need excellent UV protection, but there's a major catch with polarized lenses.
They're not good for pilots. I thought they cut glare.
They do cut glare, but they cause big problems in cockpits. First, they can interact strangely with the tempered glass of aircraft windscreens, creating these weird visual distortions like rainbow patterns or blotches called moire patterns.
Okay, that sounds distracting.
Very. But even worse is how they interact with cockpit displays. Modern flight decks are full of LCD screens.
And those screens emit polarized light.
Often, yes. So if a pilot is wearing polarized sunglasses and turns their head, the filters can line up in a way that makes the screen go dark or completely disappear. Imagine losing your altitude reading at a critical moment.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's incredibly dangerous.
Totally. So pilots typically use high-quality, non-polarized lenses, often with special anti-reflective coatings, to manage glare without risking those issues.
All right, let's go to the extreme. Space travel.
Yep.
Sunglasses in space. That must be next level.
It really is. Outside the Earth's atmosphere, sunlight is incredibly intense. You need protection not just from way more UV, but also from infrared radiation. Inside the spacecraft, astronauts often wear specialized dark lenses, sometimes with a thin gold coating for extra protection.
Gold coating, like on the visors.
Exactly like the visors for spacewalks. The helmet visor is the ultimate sunglass. It has multiple layers, and that very thin, transparent layer of gold on the outside is crucial. It reflects away the bulk of the dangerous solar radiation, UV and infrared. Without it, an astronaut's eyes would be severely damaged almost instantly.
And the frames have to be special, too, because of zero gravity.
Absolutely critical. Think about it. You can't have little screws or hinges coming loose and floating around the cabin. That's a huge hazard, could be inhaled, could short out equipment.
So no tiny parts that can break off.
Right. The frames need to be super durable, flexible, fit securely, and ideally have a very simple construction. Since about 2002, NASA has often used these specific frames made by Silhouette, the Titan minimal art model.
What's special about them?
They're incredibly light, under 2 grams, and they're designed completely without screws or hinges. Just flexible titanium wires and the lenses, minimal risk of parts floating away. They fit them with custom dark lenses for use inside the station or shuttle.
Amazing. And there was even a link back to regular sunglasses on the moon landing.
Yeah, a nice little historical tie-in. Apparently, Buzz Aldrin had his standard issue American optical pilot sunglasses with him inside the lunar module, the Eagle, during the Apollo 11 mission back in '69.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
From Inuit ivory carving to the lunar module, quite the technological leap.
Isn't it, though? Really shows the journey of this seemingly simple object.
Okay, let's bring it back down to earth for our last section, part 4. Fashion, culture, and identity. Because sunglasses obviously do way more than just block light, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Their social and psychological functions are huge. The most obvious one is hiding the eyes. By blocking eye contact, they create this sense of detachment, mystery, coolness. They're a shield.
And they hide emotions too, right?
Totally. You can hide if you're blinking nervously, if your eyes are red from crying, or allergies, if you're tired. That's why they're so useful in certain situations.
Like poker. You mentioned poker players.
Exactly. Pro poker players often wear really dark glasses indoors, not because of the light, but purely to hide their tells. The tiniest flicker of an eye, pupils dilating when they had a good hand, that can give away crucial information. The sunglasses are part of their game strategy, their poker face.
And they're used for other kinds of concealment too, like hiding medical issues.
Yeah, that's an important function. People with severe visual impairments, like blindness, sometimes wear them to make sighted people feel more comfortable, sadly. Or they can conceal conditions like bulging eyes from thyroid problems, ophthalmos, or cataracts, or even just bloodshot eyes.
And the less savory use.
Yeah.
Criminals hiding their identity.
Well, yeah, that's obviously a common trope in reality, trying to obscure identity during or after a crime. So yeah, from poker strategy to social comfort to criminal concealment, a lot going on behind those lenses.
Let's talk style evolution. Certain frame shapes just scream a particular era or culture. The aviator, for instance, where did that come from?
Aviators came directly from military requirements. Bausch and Lomb developed them in the mid-1930s for U.S. Army Air Corps pilots. The key features are those large, convex, sort of teardrop-shaped lenses designed for maximum eye coverage, and the thin metal frame, usually with that double bridge over the nose.
And they became iconic partly because of General MacArthur.
He was definitely one of the first major public figures associated with them, photographed wearing them extensively during World War II in the Pacific. That cemented their heroic military image initially.
But they had a huge comeback later, didn't they?
They really did. After the war, they kind of ebbed and flowed, got picked up by the counterculture in the 60s and 70s. But the massive resurgence was in the 1980s, heavily fueled by movies.
Top Gun.
Top Gun is the classic example. That 1986 movie featured Tom Cruise wearing Ray-Ban aviators, and sales reportedly jumped something like 40% almost overnight. Product placement gold. It redefined them as symbols of cool, confident masculinity for a whole new generation.
Okay, the other giant of sunglass style, the Wayfare.
The Wayfare. Introduced by Ray-Ban in 1952, totally different look, that distinctive trapezoidal shape made from chunky plastic. It was a radical departure from the metal frames common before.
And who was associated with those initially?
They quickly became linked with rebellion, rock and roll, Hollywood cool, think James Dean, Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, Bob Dylan, later the Blues Brothers. They had this edgy, intellectual, slightly non-conformist vibe.
And like aviators, they had an 80s comeback too.
Huge comeback. They'd actually almost been discontinued, believe it or not. But then Ray-Ban made a big push with product placement in the early 80s. Films like Risky Business and The Breakfast Club, TV shows like Miami Vice and Moonlighting. Suddenly Wayfarers were everywhere again, defining that sort of cool retro 80s look.
Shows the power of pop culture. Now, for maximum hiding power, the oversized look.
Yes, the Jackie O's, as they're often called. Named after Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who really popularized them in the 1960s. Very large lenses, often quite round or square, thick frames.
And the main purpose was?
Privacy, mostly. They became the go-to style for celebrities trying to shield themselves from paparazzi cameras. But they also offer excellent sun protection for the face. And some people feel they help balance facial features, maybe making a large nose seem smaller.
Okay, let's go counterculture again. T-shades.
T-shades, the classic hippie glasses, small, perfectly round lenses, usually in thin wire frames. Think John Lennon, Janis Joplin, Ozzy Osbourne later on.
Were they about protection at all?
Not really, no. They're almost purely an aesthetic statement. A symbol of the 60s counterculture, often with colored or mirrored lenses just for effect. They didn't offer much physical protection because they were so small, but they were a huge part of that era's identity.
And then, shutter shades, the ultimate 80s fad.
Yes, shutter shades. Those plastic glasses with horizontal slats or shutters instead of actual lenses, kind of a novelty item that became weirdly popular for a while.
You mentioned they're kind of like the Inuit goggles in principle.
In a very basic way, yeah. They reduce light by physically blocking parts of your vision, rather than filtering. But, and this is a crucial difference, standard shutter shades offer virtually zero UV protection unless they happen to have proper UV blocking lenses fitted behind the shutters, which most didn't. So, high risk of that pupil paradox again, mostly just a fashion gimmick.
Okay, wrapping up the styles, let's touch on frame materials beyond plastic and metal. Wood frames seem trendy now.
Definitely a growing trend. You see frames made from bamboo, various hardwoods like walnut or maple, even recycled wood from things like old skateboards or whiskey barrels.
What's the appeal there?
It offers a different aesthetic, more natural, often unique grain patterns. They can be lightweight and sometimes hypoallergenic for people sensitive to metals or plastics. They might need a bit more care, you don't want to soak them, but they offer a sustainable, kind of artisanal option.
And what about functional variations, like gradient lenses?
Gradient lenses are really useful. They're darker at the top and gradually get lighter towards the bottom. Perfect for drivers or pilots because the dark top cuts glare from the sky, while the lighter bottom lets you clearly see your dashboard or instruments.
Also clip-ons and flip-ups.
Right, practical solutions for people who wear regular prescription glasses.
Okay.
Clip-ons just attach to your existing frames. Flip-ups are permanently attached but hinge upwards, so you can quickly switch between tinted and clear vision without taking your glasses off handy if you're going indoors and outdoors frequently.
What an incredible journey. We started with, judges in ancient China using smoky quartz to hide their thoughts.
Yeah, and Inuit hunters carving ivory slits to survive Arctic glare.
It ended up with astronauts needing screwless titanium frames and gold-coated visors just to survive in space. It's amazing.
The whole progression is wild, isn't it? From basic glare reduction based on physical shape, to understanding invisible radiation, developing chemical filters, setting strict medical standards like UV 400 and blue blocking.
And wrestling with that constant paradox, the danger of dark lenses that don't actually protect. The pupil paradox is a really key takeaway.
It absolutely is. Assuming dark means safe or expensive means safe is a dangerous mistake. Protection is about the science, the filtering, not the look or the price.
It's just wild that this thing, sunglasses, is simultaneously this huge fashion statement, this symbol of cool and celebrity, and a piece of critical, highly engineered safety gear. The two sides are almost inseparable now.
And understanding that engineering, that science is really your best defense when you're choosing a pair.
Okay, so let's leave our listeners with this final thought to chew on. We've seen that price doesn't guarantee protection, darkness doesn't guarantee protection, and different activities have totally different needs, driving, flying, even maybe helping your sleep. So when you go to buy your next pair of sunglasses, what is the one piece of data, the one verifiable fact you absolutely must look for to make sure you're getting real scientific protection for your long-term eye health? And not just a fashion accessory that might actually be doing more harm than good.
Think about that UV rating, that HEV blocking. What's the minimum standard that truly matters?
Exactly. Think about it. Choose wisely. Your eyes will thank you for it down the road.